Road. Blind eye to the things we should be looking at.
What are we doing? It's not like we didn't know. We know. We are turning our eyes.
The Glenn Beck Program.
I have no tolerance anymore for people who say, I just can't look at it.
Listen and look.
You don't have that option.
Glenn Beck. Mornings at 7.
What can you do? Here's something you can do.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Ida Beza Gardner already tuning in, chiming in with us over there. That's one of the reasons we mention those pages, is because it's one of the better ways you can get at us wherever you are, whatever device you got on. As long as you got some kind of signal, well, really can get at us no matter what, because you got radio signal, you got internet signal, you're pretty well good to go, and you're tuned in and chimed in with what all we got going on here. Calvin Williams, also good afternoon to you as well, because we do this and we put the video up there and all the parts that we enjoy having from that. But also we'll have, of course, those phone lines open a little bit later in the show, because the back and forth is also just ever so slightly a key part of what we do here, and having that conversation about the things that affect us here in the borderland. And boy, do we have a bunch of them for you today. Yes, I know that there is quite an overarching story that we have full faith and confidence in our other national hosts and such to be delving into, but a lot of local stuff that is very impacting and, well, maybe not quite as screamable about, but you bet your butt we're going to get into all of those subjects here, including, just to name a few. I mean, we could only cram so much into the announcement post here for this show, because among other things, the end of Remain in Mexico as we've known it, the Trump era immigration policy. I mean, we had quite the kerfuffle over Title 42 and that potential still apparently being effectuated, at least according to local reports and local law enforcement releases about situations that have been going forth. But Remain in Mexico, it became to be known as, more officially known as Migrant Protection Protocols, or MPP for short, looking to be over now, after there has been, there were, of course, some Supreme Court cases involved with it, and now official decisions coming out of the Biden administration. So we will delve into that. Plus, yes, some more on the tax implications, but also local tax implications. So taxes two ways, shall we call it, both from the local aspect of them, what you can expect with home valuations coming very shortly, probably within the next year or so, plus what the some of the discussion, because we were wading into it a bit, and yes, taxation affects everyone and will certainly affect us here in the borderland. So what some of those specific provisions coming out of the Inflation Reduction Act, among the many others that are there. But so taxes two ways, let's call it that way today. Though there are some impacts to government spending we're seeing in our area, including a being touted expansion, revamping, what have you, for the Isleta Port of Entry, one of the major ones in our areas. Plus, in the background, of course, of pretty much all of these subjects, I can't think of a one that wouldn't be affected by this. Voting, elections, the midterms, of course, we are in that countdown, just shy of 90 days out of election day itself. Early voting, of course, happening even sooner than that. So less than 3 months away from when people will start heading to the polls. What are some of the factors that people are being, driven to consider voting about? Now, longtime listeners to this program will have no doubt that that's an important subject and one we delve into, but what are others, though, those that are maybe not as tuned into what's going on in the borderland community, or statewide, even national? What are some of the things, including some of those Supreme Court decisions, as well as the general importance? So we're going to be talking with the nonpartisan organization Vote.org about the stats they're tracking, along with some of the factors here. So that'll be our interview for today. So a lot to get to. Absolutely. Not that these are ever particularly slow news days around here, but it definitely feels like we're cramming it in like a Tokyo subway car here right now. So let's just dive right into it. Remain in Mexico, probably one of the two biggest and, of course, most recognizable hallmark policies that has been in place more or less. I know that there's probably some more argument on the less part of the side, but definitely less now, as again, being reported widely. Texas Tribune, Washington Post, and including our news partners over there at KFOX 14, citing some of the AP reporting on it, that the Department of Homeland Security is going to be ending, again, that Trump-era policy requiring asylum seekers to wait in Mexico for hearings in U.S. immigration court. And of course, this is, there's been orders in place back and forth, but this is one of those policies that has been put firmly back into the court of the administration, the Biden administration, by one of those Supreme Court decisions. I know it may be easy to characterize any particular session of the Supreme Court as very beneficial to one side or the other, but sure, there may be an argument to be made that on the balance, it may have gone, more to the Republican side of things. But in this case, it did not, in a, narrow-ish decision, the Supreme Court saying that, immigration is definitely under foreign policy. And so considering that these are not laws we are talking about, but rather cascading sets of executive orders, very much falls under, again, as decided by the Supreme Court, under the Biden administration. So their decision to, end that, migrant protection protocols, MPP, so-called, and often much more referred to remain in Mexico policy, now saying Department of Homeland Security that they will be ending it. The exact some of the timelines have been a little bit confusing here, but this is Homeland Security saying in a statement that it will be unwound in a quick and orderly manner. No more people are being enrolled. Those who appear in court will not be returned to Mexico when they appear in the U.S. for their next hearings. And going on, the Department of Homeland Security says that the policy has endemic flaws, imposes unjustifiable human costs, and pulls resources and personnel away from other priority efforts to secure our border. And again, those that have previously been in the program, a lot more questions than answers, honestly, at this point. But what the effects that could be happening here in this community, well, there's some estimated, I've frankly lost track of what the estimation even is. Some of the more recent ones I could find are from months ago at this point, but some of the expectations, it was on the orders of tens of thousands either enrolled or waiting to be, or some vestige, some way involved with this Remain in Mexico policy and program right across the river from us here in Ciudad Juarez. So that impact and what may happen with future court appearances, how they're actually going to unwind it, will be of critical importance to our area, because how this is being done and making sure that there is not a literal and figurative flood, both of people, personnel in the courts and these immigration courts, which are, not really courts, but we call them courts because we don't have a better word than court. Let me say court one more time. But seriously, this is not done effectively and just in the right way. Calvin Williams suggesting kind of a solution here, saying we need more buses bound for New York, Delaware, and DC. I don't think they've been bound for Delaware that much, but I would have an expectation that Governor Abbott would not be opposed potentially to such a thing. I think the obvious purpose there is, the political goals that come along with that whole program have been not even just obvious, but stated explicitly as part of it. So I wouldn't be too surprised here. And again, more conversation going on some of those national situations. Again, we're going to focus as much as we can. We will open up those phone lines and get to those comments a little bit later. John Brazelton mentioning some of them here. You're, of course, welcome to chime in on those subjects, but for the moment, anyway, some of those local situations, including what, or at least statewide and a little bit nationally, what you can expect from some of the voting coming up here. So already getting close to the need for that first break of the hour here right now. Again, our interview today coming out about with, vote.org, the organization trying to get people both informed, knowledgeable, and getting out the vote. What numbers they're actually looking at, some of the things that have been driving people to seek out their voter information and make sure they are registered, and what some of those impacts might be coming for the midterm elections that are interviewed today. So elections certainly have consequences, so it might behoove you to keep a similar kind of thing in mind. In any case, due for that first break of the hour right now, coming out of this break, that interview and a whole lot more discussion about what we got going on and the things affecting us here in the borderlands. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break with more here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am, of course, your host, Andrew J. Polk. Don't go anywhere, because we'll be talking about, again, that voting, what Texas might have those effects on. And of course, those races we'll be voting on here, but don't go anywhere. All that coming up. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Westbound on the Trans Mountain west of the 54 Gateway, an earlier motorcyclist accident still blocking the right shoulder. I-10 westbound from Schuster to Executive Center Boulevard. Roadwork has the right lane closed. Donovan at North Mesa, an accident reported with El Paso Fire on the scene. And police still working an earlier crash. Artcraft westbound west of the 10 at Behringer. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Instantaneous communication across the globe is an expectation and has been for nearly 2 decades, but it hasn't always been this way. It used to take weeks or months. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Clown Parade is an anthology comedy podcast series presented by Will Ferrell, Bowen Yang, and Matt Rogers. Each month, hear a fresh comedic talent create a brand new podcast format hosted by an original character of their own creation in the spirit of the Ron Burgundy podcast.
What I want you guys to produce are multiple podcasts.
Oh.
It's one podcast called Clown Parade, a anthological character piece carefully curated by culturistas.
Listen to Clown Parade on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you've ever ordered food for work, you understand. It's different. There's just so much more at stake. Whether it's a meeting, a client call, or lunch with the office that has to arrive at the actual lunchtime, food for work has to work. That's why there's Easy Cater. Food that's on time and as ordered from over 82,000 restaurants. And if there's a problem, rare, you can reach someone in seconds.
Thank you for calling Easy Cater.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but Easy Cater just does. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people chiming in over in our comments, over on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Good afternoon to you as well. Sean Gardner chiming in over there, as well as RJ, John Browsel, Calvin Williams, Ida Beza Gardner. Dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate as well. Calvin Williams, Monica Cervantes, and Robbie Flores. And RJ chiming in over on the YouTube, because that's probably the second most active page, the YouTube Talk El Paso channel, saying that Mexico has had it with our open borders. It's causing them issues and endangering their federales on the Mexican southern border. So we will be expelling migrants to their home country now, not Mexico. I've gotten some flack for saying this, but both yes and no, because, well, truth is often more complicated than a nice pithy line. We'll go there. Lorenzo Colon also chiming in over on our social media, saying a long time, don't have much time right now to get on as much anymore. Fair enough. Well, the good news is about the way we're up on a lot of these channels is, particularly with the social media, it stays up there. So tune in at your leisure and get caught up on it. But I will say there is something about live local talk radio and it happening, you being part of it as it happens. So, hey, whatever works for you, no sweat. Thinking back to RJ's comment, again, in my semi-complicated answer, the point is that Mexico, both, yes, does not like having, I mean, they've been so secret, they've been not fans of the MPP program. Again, my protection protocols remain in Mexico policy, as it's more commonly been known. But they also haven't exactly been really dealing too much with it at their southern border. Like, sure, there's the whole changeover that happened with the Mexican National Guard, La Guardia Nacional, and what has come out of that. But then there's also the anti-migration, the letting people filter through, kind of like a 2.0 version of their previous policy of, as long as you don't stop in Mexico, go right the heck ahead. Now, so that hasn't been working out for them as much. So they're now kind of pushing back on it, but still kind of working on it. So that's why I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but it's also not quite that simple, because they still don't mind if people seemingly unofficially move through, as long as they're not talking about like caravan style. Things continue to change and evolve, and which is why laws and the things affecting them and the people making those laws, because they've been elected to it, is ever so important. Case in point here, that it's not like terrifically often that I get statements on the same issue, both congratulatory from, well, different federal elected officials of completely different parties here within the state of Texas. Case in point, further on, that got a statement from both Veronica Escobar, El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar's office a little bit earlier today, as well as Texas Senator John Cornyn, both on the same issue and both congratulatory about it, about there being a $12 million infrastructure grant for the Isleta port of entry. Similar statements coming out from both of them. I know our news partners over at KFOX have some of the statements there, as well as Cornyn saying access to safe and efficient infrastructure is critical for Texas. I applaud this announcement. I look forward to seeing the positive impact this investment will have in El Paso. This is an example of laws, and these are specifically a $12 million infrastructure grant from the RAISE grant, or Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity grant. $12 million to invest in the road, rail, transit, and port projects. So coming to the city of El Paso, so some stuff coming up with there, of course. But seriously, the people making these laws, and the fact that we also have, well, on the immigration issue, to put it as a real fine point, the fact that a law has not substantively been passed in terms of real reform, either on the immigration side or border security side of things, has been more than a little bit frustrating. So how do we get there, and how do we deal with it? Well, I have the continued argument that going to the ballot box and making sure your voice is heard is at least step one, if not the total solution, unfortunately. But missing that, a lot of other things tend to fall a little bit flat, unless you've got an Elon Musk amount of money you're willing to throw around, which, if you do that, call me. We have several ideas we can go over. But in any case, voting and these midterm elections probably going to have a little bit of a heightened importance to a lot of people. That'll be my continued contention in any case. So wanted to know some of the factors going into this. So an organization, vote.org, has been, well, of course, trying to get people registered to vote, knowledgeable about it, eager to go out to the polls as much as can be done with such a very much adulting kind of issue. But seriously, what can be done with that, and what issues have been drawing people towards it? They've been doing some of the measure of it. So I was able to speak with them a little bit earlier today about, well, what even are the factors that they look at and the measures they've been doing. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Latoya Knighton, Senior Manager of Communications with Vote.org. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me.
Absolutely happy to talk with you all, because longtime listeners of our programming might know that voting, the actions of doing it, the details, importance, all of those factors are very near and dear to my heart, and something we talk about like more often than not. And there's some very interesting numbers and figures that you all have been measuring. But for those not familiar with the platform, I mean, the website makes a lot of sense and sounds like the mission as well. But again, for those not familiar, what is vote.org?
Yes, so at Vote.org, we are a technology company. Our website, Vote.org, enables individuals across the country to utilize our tools to either register to vote, to verify their registration, make sure that they can show up to the ballot box and be able to vote. Users can request mail ballots as well, and additionally find their polling place location. And so we are a nonpartisan organization. We are not, affiliated with any political party or political candidate. Our mission is simply to simplify political engagement through our technology for voters across the country.
given that we talk a lot about Texas, New Mexico laws from our perspective, but given the very many different ways that laws, registration requirements can exist around the country, that doesn't sound like any mean feat to be able to then encapsulate that all in one site.
Absolutely. We're super proud of our engineering team. We have a very strong engineering team, behind our work, and also a programs team that does the research. They make sure that the information on our platform is up to date on a daily basis. And so Americans across the country, no matter what state you're in, you can go to vote.org, click on your state, and you will have up-to-date information and what you need to know before you go to the polls. And you're exactly right, Andrew, with all of the laws that are constantly changing. We've tracked at least 19 to 20 states that have enacted changes to their voting processes just since the 2020 election. So it's so critical that individuals are able to have a one-stop place where they can go to learn what they need to know before they arrive at the ballot box.
Absolutely. I fully encourage people to do that here, but it's not just from y'all's perspective about providing the information here. You also do some data gathering as well as part of it, including, of course, with some pretty momentous legal changes and other things that have been going on, particularly in the national scope. You all have been measuring noting some changes in the way people are interacting with the site, particularly such as in the even lead up to, but particularly the aftermath of some of the recent Supreme Court decisions. We had a very consequential Supreme Court session ending recently. One of the ones that is getting cited most often here being the overturning effectively of Roe versus Wade. And so you all saw some very interesting results then within your platform coming from that, right?
Absolutely. So, we're less than 90 days out from the election. And so as we get closer to the election, we are tracking our site visits. We're tracking which tools on the site Americans are looking for. And that activity does give us a clue that following particularly national significant political or these big legal moments, we're starting to see that voters are seeking out information, and many times they may not even be registered to vote, but they're looking for information on how they can, make their opinion known, how they can, find out how they can get to the ballot box and make their opinion known. And so you're right. After, June 24th, we decided to just take a look and see what our site traffic was like, comparing the Friday, June 24th Supreme Court decision with the previous Friday, and looking at the difference in that site traffic. And we saw a 332% increase across the country in individuals hopping on vote.org to register to vote. And we also specifically in Texas saw a pretty dramatic increase from approximately 300 or so visits in the week prior to that Supreme Court decision. That jumped to 2,700 new visits from prospective Texas voters. And so, again, that tells us that as these national broad, issues happen across the state, Americans are, wanting to take action to make their opinions heard.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Latoya Knighton, Senior Manager of Communications with Vote.org. Again, if you want to find that website where you can find their information and everything they put out, vote.org. That's VOTE.org. So looking at those changes here, by no means is this, of course, a measure of therefore everyone registering to vote here, but I'm sure that you all have, a statistical analysis relationship that you show between, visits to your site and therefore the maybe closer to a measure of the absolute amount of activity or interest that is coming up, at least in a short-term level or in regards to an upcoming election.
Absolutely. We don't like to speculate on how those site visits may correlate with actual voter turnout. But we can say, just to jump north of Texas a little bit, in Kansas, that just had a pretty important ballot initiative on the same topic. We had just the same tremendous increases in individuals heading to the vote.org site in the weeks leading up that primary election with that constitutional item on their ballot. As we all know now, that turnout was very impressive and a little perhaps unexpected, right? In an off presidential year. And so again, we don't want to say that there's a correlation, but we certainly hope so. Again, our goal is to just get Americans to turn out, to get them registered to vote, and to make sure that the people are actually showing up to exercise their part in our democracy.
Definitely an important aspect to focus on there. So as we are getting closer to this, as you mentioned, we're roughly that 90 days out of the November 8th election, the midterm election, those consequential nature that can come from them, and a number of primaries in the midst of it. Of course, Texas has already completed it's earlier in the year, but when it comes to just the expectations of, or the activity more specifically that you all have seen, what are the trends and what are the expectations as we get closer to November?
So, really the expectation, going into a midterm traditionally in our country is that voter turnout will be lower than what was seen in the immediate prior presidential. We are hoping to turn that tide around and not just vote.org. We have a coalition of extremely strong, get out the vote partners, grassroots organizations that are working to increase the number of individuals that participate in this, democratic process called voting. So again, traditionally we don't see the large numbers of Americans turning out in a midterm election. We are hopeful again that some of the national discourse around, areas such as the Supreme Court decision on June 24th, even perhaps the January 6th House, hearings, but then more importantly, even some of the local issues that are happening in local areas across the country. We're hopeful that will energize voters. Again, regardless of the political party, whatever side of the aisle they're on, we're just hopeful that more numbers of voters actually turn out to vote. And so that's our hope. That's our anticipation. Again, giving everything that is happening in the national landscape. And we hope, again, that this midterm will be different than 2018, for example.
Again, that's been Latoya Knighton and with vote.org. Continuing our conversation with her, but due for that next break right now. Again, you are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM, and I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Whole lot more that we will end up getting to here, and more focus, of course, on voting, ever so slightly well-worn soapbox on our end. So a little bit more about some of those factors going into the midterms and why voting matters. Not that we need to repeat it more, but it never hurts to bear repeating. Anyway, back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. Las Cruces police say there was no officer watching over a suspect who was transferred to an El Paso hospital after Las Cruces police officers shot him. That shooting followed an armed robbery and pursuit. Joshua Lopez walked out of the University Medical Center last Wednesday. CBS 4 on your side spoke with the Deputy Las Cruces Police Chief Kiri Daines to find out why there was no security with Lopez. She says at the time he was admitted into the hospital, there were no charges because he was just injured, that they were still doing the investigation. Police say Lopez and Miles Luciano were involved in a car chase on July 27th after they allegedly shoplifted an air conditioner from a Lowe's home improvement store. The pursuit ended when Lopez crashed into a pole on Telshore. He was then shot by Las Cruces police as he tried to get away. It was then that Lopez was taken to UMC in El Paso for his injuries. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso Freeway is pretty quiet right now. No major collisions downtown. An accident reported Santa Fe at 4th Avenue. Road construction on Donovan Drive's got the left lane closed north and southbound between Thorn and Red. And 3 lanes are closed on Red Road westbound at Donovan for road construction. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We have a pretty active weather pattern to kick off this work week, and it looks like we'll continue with that chance for more evening showers and thunderstorms, some of which could produce some pretty heavy rain and gusty winds. Now, as far as temperatures go, well, that'll help to offset some of the heat, so temperatures should run just slightly below average. Log on to kfoxtv.com for the very latest radar and forecast.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Shop the new appliance truckload event at Lowe's going on now. They have a large selection of refrigerators, ranges, and more from the brands you trust. Plus, get store-wide savings on other in-stock categories. Shop the event online or in-store now while supplies last. Valid through 8/17.
If you're considering protecting your retirement with gold or silver, listen up. There is one company to trust for this. Advantage Gold. They are the highest rated precious metals firm in the country and are so passionate about teaching people how to own physical gold and silver, they have won the Best of TrustLink Awards 4 years in a row because they really educate their clients on how to buy gold and silver the right way. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of their experts so they can send you a free gold kit along with a free copy of the Wall Street Journal national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. With the crazy state of the world right now, who knows what is going to happen tomorrow? Don't wait any longer. Get the best information, the best process, the best service, the best value. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor. Consult with your financial advisor before investing.
Call 800-900-8000.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Instantaneous communication across the globe is an expectation and has been for nearly 2 decades, but it hasn't always been this way. It used to take weeks or months. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those, talking about a lot of issues, including those very locally impacting here, immigration, the end of the migrant protection protocols, MPP, more commonly known as so-called Remain in Mexico policy. Maria Coleman on that point saying, I do not anticipate an orderly process either by federal or local authorities, endangering people on both sides of the border. We've had issues for a minute here about the sparseness of plans. Sure, we had that pillar plan mentioned some months ago before this recent Supreme Court session, so at least 2 months ago, I want to say. But there's more to come with this, absolutely. John Browson on the voting issue saying that most citizens in El Paso vote on whether they receive some kind of federal check or monies. I'm reminded of the quote by Alexis de Tocqueville that the American public will endure until the American Congress realizes they can bribe the American people with their own money. It seems vaguely relevant to what you're referring to there anyway. But again, continuing the conversation about voting and the importance of it and why, exercising that kind of serious civil liberties is ever so slightly important. I'm never going to stop talking about it as long as I have breath in my lungs, most likely here. I can't imagine focusing on such a foundational one. Sure, there's arguments to be made that there may be others that are, in certain instances, more impacting, but to the foundation of most of everything we talk about with our government, it comes back, at least for me, quite often to the ballot box here. So continuing on that interview, again, with Latoya Knighton with vote.org in part 2 of that interview, getting on more into some of the details, some of the factors, what can be expected as we get closer to the midterms and more. So here's the continuation, second part of that interview here. Enjoy. midterms notoriously having less of an outcome, but we have often talked about here about there being difference between off-year and then off-year elections as well. When it comes to what you all are actually seeing here in the lead up to this midterms, these off-year elections, what are some of the numbers that you all are seeing so far? What are some of those indicators at the moment anyway?
Sure. Well, some of the indicators, again, that we're seeing as we continue to look at our numbers post the June 24th road decision, for example, across the board in at least 12 states, we are seeing a 500% increase compared to the months prior to June. As we're here at the halfway mark of the year, we've got about a 500% increase in visits to our site. In 12 states, many of those states are what you would consider battleground states, where they've got, tremendously competitive races for offices such as the governor. Some of those states are electing Secretary of State, which of course, many states, the Secretary of State plays a very pivotal role in the voting process and what that looks like. So we know that elections and how elections are ran, how that democratic process it functions state by state. We know that that's also a really politically hot button issue right now. And so we're seeing in those particular states that individuals are, heading to our site in larger numbers than they have in years past to either verify their registration or many times to actually register to vote. Our focus at vote.org leading into the midterms is actually to concentrate on making sure that those new young voters understand the importance of exercising their right to vote. And so we will be concentrating on individuals age 18 to 30. You talked about midterms being notoriously low with turnout. It's even worse when you look at that particular age group. That particular age group typically shows up to vote in the presidential cycles. But again, we know that the midterms are just as important, particularly when you look at the local elections. And so we will be doing a lot of get out the vote activity to educate youth 18 to 30 about how they can get themselves registered to vote.
Yeah, among the other aspects here, notoriously low turnout for those, the youth categories you're talking about there, though it may sound a little bit paradoxical to refer to those up to 30 as youth. But I mean, the numbers bear out that it's in the same kind of category of not showing up consistently anyway, like maybe during those real banner moments. And that's a kind of perennial problem we have here across a lot of age ranges anyway. So in terms of those either new voters or even those inconsistent or uninformed voters, when it comes to those kind of efforts or what results you're seeing initially, are there being any changes, any differences in what you're seeing, at least in the registrations with you all, or different ways that you all are going about that outreach and focusing on those age categories?
Absolutely. So yes, when going back to the same stats that we mentioned earlier, the 300% jump across the country right after the Supreme Court's June 24th decision, with that 300%, the majority of the individuals that we saw either that were visiting our site or were registering to vote on our site, they did come from the 18 to 30 age demographic. We don't track a race demographic, and so we don't have, we can't get that granular with detail. However, we are noticing that it is a younger demographic that is showing up to seek information on our site.
Okay, so with the continuing trends towards this may be, given the many things, I mean, even happening as of today with new bills being signed, more impacts, more discussions continuing on here, this has felt maybe not absolutely, but at least anecdotally as a very active political season, again, as kind of bookended the way we're thinking about it here with those Supreme Court decisions. But continuing on, as we get closer to the midterm, there's a lot of, well, in our community, I hesitate to say apathy, but I would say a lack of engagement, to be sure. That may be a little bit euphemistic, to be honest with you. But in any case, for those that are wondering, okay, what's this kind of election cycle going to be like? Or more probably common in our area. Well, what's the need for me to go out and vote and actually go out, participate in, whatever happens will happen, and either maybe expectations of, well, my standpoint either won't be represented, so I shouldn't bother anyway, or, well, my standpoint is already very well represented, so I don't need to bother anyway. What would you respond to someone with those kind of either, I mean, there may sound like opposite viewpoints, but ultimately both result in people tending not to vote. So in response to that kind of a standpoint, what do you all say, or what are your all's considerations?
Sure. Well, first, I would say, when it comes to your local elections, those are the elections where decisions, the folks who are elected, the decisions that are made at the ballot box, those decisions are going to impact, a voter far, faster and more directly than, for example, a federal election, whatever you're casting your vote on for something happening at the federal level. And so as we, again, Andrew, think back to all of the political landscape right now, particularly what's happening across cities and towns in the country with school boards, with, county sheriff's offices, for example, city council elections, those races are very important, again, to the day-to-day, what's going to impact a voter in their everyday, day-to-day life. And so, at vote.org, we want folks to show up for the midterms. We want folks to show up for the presidentials. But, particularly when you look at midterm elections, when you have some of those local offices or local ballot initiatives on the ballot as well, that's going to really impact a voter's life, far, far quicker than perhaps something that they're voting on at the federal level. And also important to note, those local elections, right, we've seen it from time to time where a candidate will squeak by, with just a couple of hundred votes, right? And so every vote does count. Every vote does matter. And I would say, going back on a macro level again, with vote.org, we're also looking at what we deem as voter suppression laws that have passed in approximately 19 states since the 2020 election. Again, we are a nonpartisan organization. However, when there are laws that are passed that we deem will make it harder for Americans to vote, then we aim to get involved. We actually were part of a lawsuit right there in Texas against what is called the state's wet signature law, which means that a person that wants to submit an absentee ballot must print the ballot and actually sign their name with a pen. And in the year 2022, when you can do so much, digitally, you can buy a home, you can buy a car, so many things that you can do from the computer. Our stand was that the state's wet signature law disproportionately, targeted underrepresented voters, folks who perhaps can't afford a printer, for example. And so, things like that, making sure that, as a voter, you're paying attention to the laws that are being passed at the local level, at your state level, at the federal level, and just knowing, again, that all it takes sometimes is a couple of dozen, a couple of hundred votes, and that can be an outcome. So every vote does count, is what we would say to that.
Again, guest right now has been Latoya Knighton, Senior Manager of Communications with Vote.org. Again, all their details, information, and all the efforts they have, Vote.org. So, Latoya, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about many of the details, facts, figures, and expectations for this upcoming midterm election here today.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me.
Again, thanks to Latoya there. Again, Vote.org, it has resources for wherever you're hearing this broadcast, literally. I mean, if you are listening either on our on-air or in any of these cyberspace, social media ways we're out there these days, it has your information for the United States. So please tune in there. A lot of conversation about that as well. John Browston saying a voter ID is not voter suppression. I will make a finer point there that she did not necessarily bring up voter ID there, but rather some of the provisions about getting it, or, well, some of the ballots and those issues here. So there's a lot more to dig in there, but we're already up for that next break right now. More chiming in, including Lorenzo Colon, RJ, Maria Coleman, a little bit earlier, Sean Gardner. So we'll get into that and a whole lot more after this next break, but we got to hit that break. But we'll also open up that phone line as we usually do at this point during the show. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound just before Copia, there's a vehicle stopped in the right center lane, slowing traffic. On the 10 westbound at Lee Trevino, a stalled truck's blocking the right shoulder. Pelicano westbound at Zaragoza, an injury accident with EMS and police on the scene there. Take Pullman or Vista del Sol instead. And an accident reported Talbot Avenue west of Spur 16. That's slowing traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Two titans in the finance space just combined forces, and it's massive news. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Have you thought about getting dental implants? Has someone told you that dental implants cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 per tooth? Please do not pay that much money. Instead, go to 1995implants.com, the El Paso dental office where beautiful, top-quality, long-lasting dental implants are as low as $1,995 per tooth, including the implant, abutment, and crown. Plus, we offer a free consultation with the dentist, free standard x-rays, and convenient financing plans to fit your budget. At 1995implants.com, dental implants are very affordable. So, get rid of your cracked teeth, missing teeth, and loose old wobbly dentures and get the amazing new smile that you've been wanting. 1995implants.com is conveniently located right here in El Paso. For more information, please see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
At One Day University, we feature hundreds of top-rated professors from Stanford, Harvard, Michigan, Texas, UCLA, and other schools across the world to explore history, music, politics, art, science, and much more. Every Wednesday, our weekly scholar newsletter includes short video clips of our most notable professors discussing fascinating topics, plus special reports and intriguing debates. Sign up for free at onedayu.com. That's ONEDAYU.com.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Patrick Tuttle of Coldwell Banker Heritage knows a secret. It's the power of the Coldwell Banker Real Vitalize program, which helps you fix up your home for sale with no out-of-pocket or participation costs to you. Home improvements, cleanup, and repair costs are covered and are paid back when your home sells. There's no catch, no hidden fees, interest, or markups. Let Patrick Tuttle of Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate in El Paso help you real vitalize before selling. Call him today at 915-585-7777.
Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Right now, Staples comp books and number 2 pencils are just 50 cents, and 2 pocket paper folders at just 25 cents each. In-store only, offer ends 8/27, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school, send them forward at Staples.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly since, all the social media pages are up as far as I know. I haven't gotten any notifications that there are being issues. But then also, the comments coming in there, including someone contact the traffic guy and help him pronounce Copia. Yeah, and Yandel is also a good test there, or things like La Union. They abound, but I've been doing this for way too long and know all those foibles. But also, we got those phone lines open, well, full up at the moment anyway, but if you want to try to call in, particularly squeeze in a little bit later in the show, 915-544-5876, 915-544 is the number to dial there. And some commentary about the voting issue and the issues that come along with it. Also, Steve Ivy chiming in from the farm. Saludos to you as well. Doing just real fine over here. And then some of the conversations about voting. Maria Coleman saying, has to respectfully disagree with the guest. ID should be a requirement to vote. Voting online is very vulnerable to fraud. I will frankly agree with you on that. So not exactly interested in defending it, but I think the point she was more specifically making is about certain application processes. I don't think anyone is possessed of the idea that voting online, just making it totally digital, would be 100% easy, simple, and free from problems. Yeah, that wouldn't work out. But the idea of some of these applications in order to do so, particularly for absentee ballots, to be able to get them, those being able to be done, well, essentially by online forms that you then download and submit to the proper authorities, I think there's an argument to be made there, but we can continue discussing that. Again, we do have those phone lines open and some more on that. Lorenzo Colon, particularly on the idea of voting, always notice more Democrat signs than Republican signs in El Paso. Republicans need to step it up, him saying, I'm not, okay, there's a phrase that kind of lives in my head on this idea that a rising tide raises all ships. I'm not quite sure if that applies to politics, but there's a reason I'm in favor of people getting more involved in general, is that, among other things, it'll force the people that we end up electing to office to pay attention, to know that someone is watching them. Yeah, it's just ever so slightly important here. Let's get to at least one call before we hit that next break here. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right, right out of the box, by way of edification, let me share with you folks, back in the day when I had a position in the federal government, and I had top-level security clearance, twice a year we had to take a mandatory test to ensure that we understood the responsibilities of having that particular clearance. Now, I'm going to tell you, these guys, these FBI guys that went down to Mar-a-Lago, right, didn't go down there to go look for some love letter from Kim Jong-un or some little puppet from Putin. No, they went down there to go look for some kind of serious, top secret national security. I wouldn't be surprised if it was sensitive compartment information deal. So, by the gods of old, I mean, this is nuts. This guy needs to go to jail for all reasons that you could imagine. This nut job has got to go to jail. Not to mention, you got his followers now. They are all chiming and want to start a civil war because the federal government is looking out for the interests of all of us relative to national security. Are you conservative kooks nut jobs or what? That's what I want to say.
Fair enough there. Well, let me just say this in brief here. Anyone calling for civil war is going to find, I'm going to find myself as opposed to them here, because saying that this is the point where I start killing people. Yeah, just let's play that argument out on its very basic level here. But on the flip side of that, in this situation, well, tell you what, we'll have to get to that in the next segment here. We are out of time for this hour, so appreciate the point in the call, Frankie. But we got to hit that top of the hour news break. And yes, I will respond to this comment. I know it's been the kind of elephant in the room here today as we're trying to focus on local subjects here. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. That number again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound just before Copia, there's a vehicle stopped in the right center lane, slowing traffic. On the 10 westbound at Lee Trevino, a stalled truck's blocking the right shoulder. Pelicano westbound at Zaragoza, an injury accident with EMS and police on the scene there. Take Pullman or Vista del Sol instead. And an accident reported Talbot Avenue west of Spur 16. That's slowing traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
A construction site is a noisy place where things can be misinterpreted. We need to redo the drywall. It can sound a lot like,
rewire the hull? They're firing, Paul.
Wait, what did I do? Or even,
Install a waterfall.
Whose dumb idea was this?
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk, from the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, how about that drywall?
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic, but if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer: regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The primary suspect in the recent murders of Muslim men in New Mexico is in custody. Albuquerque police confirmed Tuesday that 51-year-old Mohammed Saeed has been arrested and is being charged with 2 of the 4 homicides. Both occurred within the last couple of weeks. All of the victims were of South Asian descent. President Biden is highlighting efforts by Finland and Sweden to join NATO. During a White House ceremony, Biden signed and forwarded the U.S. ratification of the applications to NATO. He called Finland and Sweden proud and independent democratic nations. Biden noted they were prompted to join NATO because of Russia's war against Ukraine. He said Russia's invasion shattered peace and security in Eastern Europe. There are more than 8,900 confirmed cases of monkeypox in the U.S.
Every American should take monkeypox seriously, and every American must do their part to help us beat back monkeypox.
During a briefing, Health Secretary Javier Becerra said vaccines are being moved out as quickly as possible. The Biden administration recently declared it a public health emergency. Rudy Giuliani's testimony before a special grand jury in Atlanta is now tentatively rescheduled for next week. Lisa Taylor reports.
The attorney to former President Trump was set to testify today in Georgia's 2020 election probe, but his lawyers filed an emergency motion to delay, citing Giuliani's recent heart procedure. Prosecutors say the Fulton County District Attorney isn't interested in Giuliani testifying via Zoom or participating in an interview in the New York area. I'm Lisa Taylor.
A Mississippi grand jury is deciding not to indict the white woman who accused Emmett Till of harassment in 1955 after an unserved kidnapping warrant was found. The LaFleur County jurors north of Jackson deliberated on charges of kidnapping and manslaughter. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A national poll conducted by Monmouth University shows the January 6th hearings aren't changing anyone's opinion. According to the survey, at least 6 in 10 Americans have followed the House committee hearings. Respondents' opinions about what happened that day at the Capitol remained within 1 or 2% of previous polls. That means former President Trump's favorability rating is nearly identical to where it was in 2020. And at least 4 in 10 Americans would be open towards the Republican making a political comeback in 2024. There are recent warnings of overdoses rising in Virginia's capital city. Kathy White has more.
The Richmond Henrico Health District is issuing an alert following a spike in overdoses. The Richmond Ambulance Authority says it relies on residents to report an overdose to its opioid alert system to get a better idea on how to respond. The health district offers virtual sessions on the first Tuesday and last Thursday of every month.
The Giants are remaining silent after a team brawl at training camp yesterday. Scott Pringle reports.
Well, tempers got heated during a series of plays, and then there was a huge scuffle centered around Antonio Williams, Cam Brown, Jose Feliciano, and offensive line coach Bobby Johnson. Well, Feliciano reportedly punched Brown, who then tried to punch back, and the O-line coach Bobby Johnson was seen pushing Brown. The Giants head coach had to bring the team together for a talk and settle things down. He did not speak to reporters about it, and the main players involved were not made available to the media.
Another rare orange lobster is being spared from becoming dinner. The chance of catching an orange lobster is about 1 in 30 million, as the crustacean's bright color makes it more attractive to predators. Just last month, a rare orange lobster was rescued from a Red Lobster restaurant in Hollywood, Florida, and moved to Ripley's Aquarium of Myrtle Beach. On Monday, another orange lobster was saved from a Red Lobster in Meridian, Mississippi. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance at $1,000 and a trip to our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival. Text the nationwide keyword festival to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's festival to 200-200.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Fall into autumn hiring with Indeed. Their all-in-one solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Sponsor a job and immediately get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org. M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
You're listening to me for free right now, and that's awesome because more and more things aren't free right now. I mean, think about all the things you're paying for daily, monthly, yearly. Well, here's something that won't add to that list: the free iHeartRadio app. Podcasts, streaming music, digital radio, all free. It's the future of audio, and unlike almost everything else in your life right now, except maybe air, it doesn't cost $1. So take advantage of this. Listen to everything you love on the iHeartRadio app for free.
iHeartRadio. Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media outlets we're on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in there, but also, at this point during the show, we have that phone line open as well if you want to chime in that way. Full up at the moment, but you can get your chance here if you dial into 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, the number to do there, and a lot of commentary coming in there. Matt Olson, Steve Ivey, John Brazelton, Ed Clore, Maria Coleman, Robbie Flores, missing one here, Lorenzo Colon, RJ, and more over on the various social media, and Sean Gardner, more a little bit earlier as well, Ida Beza Gardner. Dropping those likes and reacts, we appreciate. Steve Ivey, Matt Olson, Robert Haynes, Ida Beza Gardner, Ed Clore, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Calvin Williams. Appreciate your appreciation of us trying to continue having live local talk radio here in the borderland and talk about the things that affect us here. Ed commenting on the weather there, saying there's no red on my weather map, just yellow, but I hope I won't get in trouble for saying this. Doppler Dave, it's a scarlet crimson. And John Brazelton, referencing the modern rain dance, I guess. I mowed the grass today. Here comes the afternoon rain. You and everyone else that got a car wash or thought, oh, it's a beautiful day to be outside, isn't it? Yeah, they'll summon this. Looking for our news partners over there at KFox 14, I guess maybe the way I don't get in trouble, is looking like, yeah, we got some deep red, almost purple in some cases. Deep purple? Nah, it's a different thing. Coming in over, kind of heading northeast or northwest, depending on which side of town you're on, through the area. So just stay safe. I'm not hearing it here, but I still super don't have a window in this room here, so I'll have to take y'all's word for it. But in any case, we're talking about a lot of the issues that are definitely affecting us here in the borderland today, including what's going on with some of those immigration policies, with the MPP, Migrant Protection Protocol, so-called Remain in Mexico policy, getting the kibosh put on it by the Biden administration after some legal hurdles have been even further cleared, plus more than a little bit of discussion about voting, the importance of it. And while, yeah, there may be some things that would be very dubious about online voting here. I mean, sure, American Idol had its call-in voting there for a while, but one person voting 100 times for one candidate is also not what I want. kind of dating myself there, I guess, now that I think about it. But in any case, also more coming, some other topics we've got for you this hour. Double whammy taxability possibilities, both from local and federal, and a whole lot more. But I promised I would get to it because it came up at the end of last segment. The entire situation at Mar-a-Lago, the FBI raid, and the focus on that. There are, I think, two ways to look at it here, and I found a pretty good review of it here, but forgetting the name of the gentleman who wrote it for the New York Post, an opinion piece today about that, you know what, there may very well be certain things that were not correctly done, because sure, a president has the absolute ability to declassify information. A former president does not. So anything that was not officially declassified during that administration that was still held on to probably has issues. Then some are, of course, bringing up, allusions to similar-ish situations, Hillary Rodham Clinton, among others, being brought up there. But let's just say this, there are some expectations of potentials under, well, and by there's probably some January 6th committee and hearing connotations coming out of this, at least what's being said publicly at the moment anyway, is much more focused on the possibility of there being some disqualifications from holding office under some of the statutes that govern, well, these holding of records, those kind of a thing. But the thing that I found most persuasive so far, not being exactly an expert, I have done background investigations and never held a clearance, but have investigated myself there in order to be able to hold one. Point is that, yes, there are statutes, yes, there are requirements, but also some of these may not, strictly speaking, be constitutional. Because among other things, the actual requirements for office are to be over 35 and a citizen of the United States, natural born, and not much else. So the fact that there may be, again, a lot of focus coming on the disqualifications from holding a future office for any such mishandling of records, if it were truly to come down to it, and I have no doubt if it were to be pushed to the Supreme Court, given the makeup of the courts currently, there are certain conclusions that can be drawn of how the vote might go. Again, crystal ball cloudy as ever, but also to say that that is being relied on would also just probably be a mistake in the long run here. Some more of the comments that have come in as well, including over the break here, on the issue we brought up with some people being more interested in voting after the aftermath of some of the Roe v. Wade related decisions here. Gentlemen wanting to talk concern about stem cells and also the money that has been wrapped up in them as an underlying, well, factor that will be going into these elections and future laws coming up here. But in any case, let's get back to those phone lines right now. Again, if you're wanting to add your 2 cents, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hello, Andrew. These are truly dangerous times for our constitutional republic. It seems like the culture war is on. Last night, we entered into the arrest this man phase of America's cold civil war with the raid on President Trump's residence. The next phase is going to be round them up phase, brought on by the newly hired 89,000 jackbooted, brown-shirted army of the IRS. Using the tax court, the one court where you are guilty until you prove your innocence.
Mm-hmm.
They will next place liens on your property or flat out take your property if you have dared to have wrong think against the ministry of truth. There has been a procession or sequence of events that has brought this all on. We began with the steal of the election. We definitely we definitely indefinitely detain nonviolent protesters of January 6th. We then purged the military, healthcare, first responders of any critical thinkers by way of a poisonous jab that doesn't work at best and may end up killing you at worst. Then getting rid of or by doing so, getting rid of or intimidating people that won't just follow the ministry and preserve the ones who will just blindly follow orders. Shove, push, shoot. If you truly want to stop this, I do have I talked with some people today, and I think this is a really good idea. We need to go back to elections we can trust. And that has to start going back to when elections that we've held for over 100 years were considered valid with paper ballots, and getting rid of computers, which can easily be tampered with. If you don't have faith in your elections, you now end the constitutional republic. So I'm going to end this with one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Take time to listen to the lyrics of the full song and prayer from America the Beautiful. And pray for our country.
Let me ask you this real quick. Just on that last point there about voting and elections, very apropos for our topics today as well. The El Paso County Elections Department, the system that they have now implemented is a hybrid. It contains both computerized tabulation, but then those physical paper ballots that you then feed into the machine and are then maintained for, I don't know exactly in front of me here, but maintained for a required set of years after there for verification purposes. Would that meet some of the requirements if this were to be more widespread anyway beyond just our area or those areas that have implemented it? Would that be closer to what you're envisioning or wanting there?
No, because it didn't happen in the last election. The computers were tampered with. There was, they had ballots that were supposed to be held for 3 or 4 years in Georgia. They were tampered with. We have to go back to it. It's going to be more difficult, but almost every country in the world has paper ballots that want fair elections. We have to do that.
Okay, fair enough.
That is just, you just have to. But please pray for this country and let's go, Brandon.
Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay well. God bless.
Absolutely. Hope everyone out there can do so as well. I mean, I'm not saying that these aren't serious things. I fully reject the idea of civil war talk coming out of this because it's unconscionable in my mind. So, all entitled opinion on that, know that I'm going to take a very dim view on it because to say that there is no political solution at this point would be, there's a lot of words I can't use right here. And even then, some people bringing up some ridiculous stuff in our comments there. We'll get to that in a bit more. Let's squeeze in. I think we got time for one more quick call before we hit that next break. We do have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
A quick call, Andrew. I got a lot on my plate here, buddy.
Fair enough.
First of all, regarding the cheating on the election, you can just go to FRANK speech.com and your pillow salesman boy will have all the detailed documentation, which you guys in the mainstream media and your station managers won't let you discuss, which I understand. Now, let me ask you some certain questions and see if you agree or not.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree that our Justice Department and FBI illegally spied on the Trump campaign when he was running for president the first time? Yes or no?
Referring to some of the FISA court and those types of filings that happened during the election process?
Fake filings, they eavesdropped on them. Yes or no? It's a simple yes or no, Andrew.
Okay, well, I would say that it's questionable at best. I don't know if there's actually been any proceedings on it here, so I'm not I'll say I'm not in favor of it.
Is the Gestapo just like the FBI, the Democrat Party? The answer is yes.
Okay.
Fake FISA warrants, okay? And Andrew McCabe and the old FBI director who wrote a book and went on a tour is on CNN now. They both committed perjury, okay? Let's go to the other things now, okay? Do you agree that Hillary Clinton did the same thing as Trump with secret documents going? She bashed her blackberries and no consequences. There's no justice in America, sir. They're going after the people, the parents. They're calling parents. The Justice Department's calling parents who complain at school board meetings terrorists. Okay, let's go to other things. The fake trumped up tax charges on Trump. And I'm no Trump fan, believe me. I didn't vote for Trump in the first primary, but there's obviously something here. Whenever all the rhinos and the Democrats are going after him, and you guys just sit here and don't report the truth, man. And some of the blood's going to be on your hand, Andrew. I mean, blood for civil war. I'm talking about this communist takeover. I told you about the Great Reset a long time ago. What that gentleman said about the 87,000 IRS agents in the time of a bad economy is exactly true. If you say the Great Reset yet or no, you recall shop. You own nothing and like it. We're headed that way. Look at Sri Lanka. Any country that goes with this Green New Deal crap goes broke and starving to death, and it ends up in riots. George Soros and the globalists and the World Economic Forum, all the people out there need to study them, have gotten a hold of the Democrat Party and about 1/3 of the rhinos, and there's no justice in America. Do you think it's fair for them to raid Project Veritas? Because they had a diary where Joe Biden's daughter said he molested her, and then they raid him. Do you think it's okay to raid a journalist in America? Yes or no?
No, in general, I have been concerned about being in a similar position myself.
That happened. Your station never mentions it, but it happened. Okay, Project Veritas was raided because they had in possession. They didn't release the story yet of Biden's diary of him molesting his own daughter. Do you think it's okay that 51 people, our Justice Department, CIA, Department of Justice, Pentagon, signed a letter saying that Hunter Biden's laptop 2 weeks before election was disinformation? Do you think that was Russian disinformation? Yes or no?
Okay, if we're going to be doing this rapid fire thing here, we're going to give me a chance to answer on part of this here because that's how this program works. Let me just put this real simply for you. Most of the problems that you're bringing up here and that you're addressing and very worked up about, I don't necessarily blame you for that, but not finding myself in favor of, whether it be those 87,000, the $17 billion I've lost track. I think it's 30 over the next decade or so. I might be mistaken on that. There's a lot of factors to go into that. What is it? The Inflation Reduction Act that has come out here. There's some promises that have been made about that being primarily for those, no increases in audits for those making under $400,000 a year, but there's nothing actually in the legislation or anything besides promises from the agency who was then going to effectuate what they do anyway to combat that. So yeah, there's a lot of issues I'm going to bring up here. And some of the most legitimate concerns I have and think that should definitely be addressed ahead of the next election is, and have been very much focused on by many different state legislatures, are the way that interpretations of the laws change. Not necessarily that the laws did, but that certain courts made decisions in light of the pandemic, and that has a lot of disturbing implications for me here. And let's make one thing perfectly clear. There is no one behind the camera, up in the background here, that is telling me what to say. I focus on primarily what the things are that affect us here in the borderland. Now, of course, taxation and the other parts we'll discuss here on this program certainly have an aspect and a part of it that come down here, particularly when we're talking about some of those local taxing entities. But I have a very firm focus on what can we talk about and deal with here. So no, there's no one telling me, no, you can't talk about these things. I make topic selections based on primarily what are some of the most impacting things and what are we essentially not necessarily stepping on the toes, but not retreading the exact same ground as our other national hosts that we trust very well to deal with these issues on their own and their own part. We're not a replacement, response, or backlash to anything else in the station. We're doing our own thing here. So you're entitled to your opinion on all of these issues, and I'm going to tend to agree with you on a bit of it here. And yeah, if anyone's at all confused about the idea of a communist takeover of the United States, be it soft or by force being a good thing, I think they're going to have another thing coming along with many of the proposed tenets of this so-called Great Reset. People who are putting it, I'm sure someone thinks they could benefit from it, but I think a lot more people are thinking, what the hell? No, I am never going to go along with it here. So I get that these are important issues to you, but let's just say that actually discussing them here and actually going into answers on them is going to be finding it a little bit more productive in the main part here. So I think we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. Overdue for it. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it as much as it was intended, I do hope. In any case, due for that next break. We got more calls on the line. We have got a whole lot more we will be getting to as we continue our mission to talk about all the issues that affect us here in the borderland. And again, that number, if you want to get on the line, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavy rain, strong winds, and even some hail in El Paso right now, slowing traffic. Watch for a disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder gateway south at Fred Wilson. An accident reported Artcraft at Donovan Drive. Take Upper Valley or Borderland Road instead. An accident reported Talbot Avenue east of Donovan Drive and west of the Spur 16. And El Paso police on the scene of a crash, Westwind Drive at Thunderbird. Use North Mesa Street or Wrestler Drive instead. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance, where you only pay for what you need.
Liberty. Nobody should have to pay for one-size-fits-all insurance coverage. Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Yee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the many social media pages where we got a lot of comments coming in right now, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on those. Joey Carlson commenting there. Then at least one mildly troll account there. EFR, Juan, Maria Coleman, RJ, Jesse Garza, Matt Olson, Maria Coleman, if I didn't say that already, Steve Ivey, John Brazelton. Checked outside during the break there. Doesn't look like we're getting any rain at this part of the neck of our woods anyway, outside the station, but yeah, the clouds are gathering, so just stay safe out there if you're out on the roads. Otherwise, at least one comment, Jory Carlson saying, calling me wrong, it is affecting us in the borderland here. I'm not sure how you come away with anything I just said with the sense that, no, none of this affects us in the borderland. The major point is here is that we're affecting somewhat, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the local issues, but that, yes, raising, interest rates and inflation absolutely affects us here. This idea of the taxation and some of the other enforcement things that people are bringing up here are also very significant and do affect us here. We already have that as part of the announcement post on our social media to talk about here today. So this is, let's just in part just say here why anger, it may be useful to get things energized and moving, but as a sustaining political emotion to get action actually done, completely unuseful, because I am just not sure, besides your anger and the infuriation you're feeling about these issues is leading you to be lashing out at anyone who may in fact partially, I pretty sure I said as a part of that here, and I tend to choose my words decently carefully, that I agree with you that these are concerns that I do also share. So if you just want to be mad, go ahead, be mad, be angry, but actually looking at what to do about things, it's kind of hard to be mad about that, isn't it? Because it's not as fun, it's not as rage-inducing, like, yeah, what can I do? Well, I'm gonna, form a committee and make sure to talk to my neighbors and make sure we all go vote. Like, it kind of drains that emotion from you, so it's not fun to think about. Now, is it? But it's ultimately what it takes if you want to do something, or if you just want to lash out, blow yourself up and outer space, whatever you want to do. sure, go ahead, but don't think that's actually going to be substantive action. And that's what I, at least in part, try to focus on for the most part. And I mean, seriously, you're even referencing things that I haven't brought up or some things that I have and saying that we've never done them. Like, seriously, think about what you want to see happen and how to actually then accomplish it. I know it's not a fun thing to talk about or to think about or to lay out a plan of action, but it's ultimately what's necessary. Let's go back to those phone lines here right now. We do have, again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. Regarding the guest that you had on, I think it is important to have some sort of ID when you go vote.
Sure.
Yes,
absolutely.
There's nothing more important than protecting the integrity of our elections.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. So, and I mean, we're referencing some things that have not been that common in the discourse lately. That was kind of more like last summer during the legislation kind of topics here. What I'll say is that, yes, having ID integrity of elections, incredibly important. I think some finer points that were kind of missed, even in that discourse, even in the whole actions, people decamping to DC, all of that was about accessibility. Not necessarily that the forms and the ways that it is verified is bad, but there may be lack of accessibility, some not present in communities. Those kind of things should have been the primary focus, in my opinion, of many of those efforts, as opposed to just saying everything's bad and nothing will be ever good again. Like, that's, again, not useful in that factor either.
Yes, one of the things I would like someone to do, I don't have the resources, but I wish a group or an individual would file a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, and actually check with the local elections boards or the jurisdictions. Ask how many registered voters you have, and ask how many ballots were cast overall.
I know that we can get some of that information here locally if you're wanting to get a more detailed, the sum total the information. I know that, again, the El Paso County Elections Department puts that out in part. That's where we get those calculations we give to y'all about of the very dismal voter turnouts we've pretty much uniformly experienced here in the borderland.
Yes, but don't they just give the figures I've seen are just percentage of registered voters that actually voted?
I mean, that's the way we tend to talk about them here, but I mean, they do, among other things on the actual voter turnouts, they do break it down into the actual sum total numbers here. I mean, the often way it's put out, like, on TV, will tend to be percentage wise because I mean, with the 30 seconds at most is going to be up on screen. That tends to be the preferred way to display it. But I mean, really, you can drill down into the numbers, though. I could also understand wanting to maybe get to the actual core ballot. They're getting a little bit more into the kind of election audit territory when you start asking about that. That have, of course, also been asked for some in some other places in Texas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, as for what happened with former President Trump, well, I'm not going to make any elaborate comments until I can actually see the affidavit that was filed to obtain the search warrant. But I will say this much: it is troubling and it is a concern to me, because we are going into dark territory, especially now that it looks like this new anti-inflation bill is going to pass.
Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, it's through the reconciliation process, well on its way at this point here. But I do share your level of concern about, I mean, at the very least, the unprecedented nature. Okay, let's just make one thing clear. The holding past, present, or future, the office of a presidency does not invalidate any past, future, or potential crimes to be caused by someone here. It's not a magic shield that will then stand up to anything, but also the tradition of there not being political or legal consequences for former or even current political rivals is a ever so slightly important one here for the history and tradition of the United States. So I definitely share a significant level of concern with the way this has been proceeding, and will be very interested to see what actual documentation, evidence, etc. comes out about this.
Yes, especially the timing before the midterm elections. Folks, I will tell you this much. I find a lot this concerning because really I lost my trust in a lot of law enforcement agencies, especially the FBI, because when you lie to a FISA court and no criminal action is taken against you, that's ridiculous. Andrew, I guarantee you, I guarantee you, after being in law enforcement 32 years, law enforcement and corrections 32 years, if you and I were to do something, or I were to do something like that, we would be facing a federal judge. We would be indicted, prosecuted, and sent to the Bureau of Prisons.
I mean, lying under oath is, and I'm assuming, and I guess I don't know 100% sure, but it's my strong assumption that submitting an affidavit, that kind of legal documentation, would count as, at the very least, lying on, again, official documentation. So, yeah, don't think that would end well for you or me.
Yeah, that's correct. And believe me, I have put my signature to many affidavits, and I proofread it. I redid it at least 3 or 4 times, making sure that every T was crossed and every dot was placed. Every I was dotted. Believe me, you don't want to get mixed up in a lie before any type of court.
Yeah, that's been my general understanding. I think one that most people would share. Absolutely.
Anyway, right now, I would, if I were in the Trump team right now, I would be in the process of filing my discovery motions and getting a hold of Professor Dershowitz and somebody of the likes of Jerry Spence. Too bad he's retired, but hey, he's a great attorney. 93 years old, but he's still a great attorney.
Yeah, fair enough. If he's still got the wits about you, more power to him.
Yes, sir. I turn the mic over to you, and have a good afternoon.
I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there, too. And some people still very ticked off in our comments there. Let me just tell you, a lot of the perspective I found myself agreeing with on this entire incident, and many of the things come out of it. Andy McCarthy's, editorial today in the, I believe it was the New York Post, is a very good one, and one that I would encourage anyone that has very strong opinions or want to find out more to give it a look at here. But in any case, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the calls, more of the comments here. And if you got problems with the larger system here, again, more power to you, and, speak your truth. But let's just say that railing at anyone who doesn't immediately agree entirely with you, probably not going to be the best way to get your goals achieved in the long run here. But again, due for that break right now. Coming out of this break, switching on to more and more of what we are needing to do and talk about here. Calls on the line 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this KFOX 14 news update. A teenager has been arrested in connection to the death of a 21-year-old man that happened at a mansion party in El Paso. Deputies arrested 18-year-old Isaac Carlos and charged him with manslaughter in the death of 21-year-old Cisco Rodriguez. Deputies were called to the hospitals of Providence on Sunday after Rodriguez was shot. He died of his injuries. On Monday, deputies arrested Carlos after they said they determined he was responsible for the shooting. Albuquerque police have arrested a suspect in the killing of several Muslim men. Albuquerque PD says it's detained the primary suspect in the murder of the 4 Muslim men. The police department announced the arrest on Twitter after the killings were denounced by President Biden. 3 Muslim men from the same mosque between the ages of 25 and 41 were shot in the past month. A 4th Muslim man was killed in November. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On Spur 601 Liberty Expressway eastbound at the Loop, a vehicle is blocking the left lane. Stay to the right there. I-10 westbound at Executive Center Boulevard is truck blocking the right shoulder. Police on the scene of a crash at Artcraft and Donovan, and roadwork starts tomorrow morning at 9 through Friday on Montana Avenue. Left lane's going to be closed from the frontage road from Tierra Este to Justice. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We have a pretty active weather pattern to kick off this work week, and it looks like we'll continue with that chance for more evening showers and thunderstorms, some of which could produce some pretty heavy rain and gusty winds. Now, as far as temperatures go, well, that'll help to offset some of the heat, so temperatures should run just slightly below average. Log on to kfoxtv.com for the very latest radar and forecast.
This report is sponsored by Napa Auto Parts.
Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things because we believe there's an innovator in all of us.
For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Two titans in the finance space just combined forces, and it's massive news. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online at KTSMradio.com.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app. A lot of people chiming in over on our social media. And again, entitled to your opinions and emotions about a lot of things here. But let's just say the productiveness of them is something to be a little bit more than considered. You want to rail against anyone and everyone that doesn't agree exactly with you, even if they are on many of the finer points. I mean, sure, there's the whole phrase, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but it's another thing entirely to say the enemy of my enemy is also still my enemy. And anyone who doesn't agree with me 100% is also my enemy. Like, I just figure out some priorities is all I'm saying. In any case, more comments coming in. They're dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Steve Ivey, Matt Olson, Robert Haynes, Ida Beza Gardner, Ed Clore, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Calvin Williams. And those calls in line here. RJ expressing concern about the law enforcement agencies, FBI and DOJ specifically, and also mentioning the IRS previously and during the Obama administration. Yeah, I'm going to say I'm not going to exactly be in favor of tyranny, no matter what uniform, stripe, party it claims to be in, because a lessening of freedoms, well, I don't care who it's focused on at that point in time, because oftentimes it ends up expanding much further than that. Let's get to those calls in the line here. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. I wanted to comment on something that Frankie said, and thank goodness he's not doing anything like this. Imagine the bipartisanship he would portray on a committee or anything. He wants us to trust the FBI. I have no doubt that the agents that were at Mar-a-Lago were doing their job. They were doing the job that the people on top of them, their supervisors, told them to do. They were doing a job just like Mueller's attorneys in the Mueller investigation. They said that Mueller had 19, and they were the A team of prosecutors in the United States of America. That's how good his team was. And they found nothing. He wants us to trust an FBI who Mark Elias lied to the FBI, and he was associated with Perkins Coie. And he said that if he lied to the FBI, it was not significant. He wants us to trust an FBI who actually has a satellite office in Perkins Coie building, who is the DNC attorneys. And he wants us to trust an FBI who had an attorney, Kleinsmith, who actually altered an email, presented it to the FISA court, which helped take our country 3 to 4 years on a wild goose chase on a Russia hoax that never happened and cost millions and millions of dollars. In D.C., and this is a judge in D.C. that signed the subpoena or warrant or whatever it is to go to Mar-a-Lago, justice is not blind in D.C. And we all know that. It's a two-party system. You know, when I ran for office many years ago, I had a gentleman tell me, he said, Barbara, you're doing a good job. You keep chipping away at that boulder in front of you till it disintegrates. Well, I'm telling the Democrats, and I'm encouraging the Republicans out there, the Democrats are helping us chip away at the boulder in front of us. They are exposing without shame exactly what they want to do. They want to control us. They want to instill fear in us. They want us to tremble because the FBI might come knocking at our front door. We cannot turn over our country to an FBI who's lost their way, to a DOJ who's even further away than the FBI. Remember when Obama made a comment about Hillary and her emails? He said there wasn't a scintilla of evidence that Hillary was communicating, I think, offline on a non-governmental phone. Turns out he was communicating with her on that secret phone. And yet he communicated that to Comey via an interview. So what does Biden do? He has a small meeting with confidants. And in that meeting, it is said that he stated that he wished Garland would basically take off his robe. In other words, stop running the DOJ as a judge and put on his lawyer hat. Well, what do we have now? They communicate to these departments exactly how they want them to perform, how they proceed in cases without directly telling them. This idea that we have arm's length between the White House and the DOJ and the FBI is a lie. They all know what they're doing, and this idea the White House did not know about the raid at Mar-a-Lago, I mean, you'd have to be delusional.
I mean, yeah, I don't buy that for a second here. They're not telling me that someone didn't make a spare call to the White. Honestly, I would be, not that I'm going to be more concerned, I would have a different increased level of concern in a different sector here. If you're saying that truly there was no notice there, like, sure, independence, DOJ and all of that here, but seriously, you're saying you had literally no knowledge? There's not a reasonable person I know.
That. I'm saying they knew, but they're claiming they have no knowledge.
Exactly. No, I'm agreeing with you here because the line coming out of the White House has been, no, it's an independent DOJ. We were not made aware of this. It didn't have to come to us. Yeah, horse bucky. Simply put.
I mean, for Frankie to want us to just blindly trust these departments without questioning their every move after everything they put the United States through. I mean, we have Brennan, we have Clapper, we have Stroke, we have Page, we have the Orrs, we have, and the list goes on. 25 or 50 service people that signed a letter saying Hunter Biden's laptop appeared to be Russian disinformation. I mean, how can you trust someone that has done nothing to earn our trust? You can't trust them. We have to question them. And El Paso, open your eyes, because it can happen to anybody. Democrat, if you're not in their good spirits, you'll be their target too. So, and Republicans, don't get discouraged. The Democrats are helping us, like I said, chip away at that boulder. We have to keep our spirit up. We have to take it with grace. We don't go to the level, when they go up, we go down. No. They're Democrats when they go down all the time, and we're the ones that are taking things with grace and caution and just using common sense. So let's go vote them out, and let's start with our representative who supports this administration, supports this horrifying crossing the border, open arms. And I'll elaborate more on that tomorrow. It's just that I have to talk about the FBI at Mar-a-Lago. Here we go again with another hoax, spending millions of dollars. They're not satisfied with persecuting President Trump and his family. They want to literally execute this man. Who does that? Who with any soul or conscience does that to a family because they fear him or they hate his policies? Had it not been for President Trump, we would not know the extent and the depth and the width of the greed, the lies, the deception that goes on in D.C. That's what we need to get out of there, whether it's Republican or Democrat. We need to get them out of office and clean the slate and be able to trust our government and not be ashamed of our government, but proud of our country.
I mean, the level of lack of faith in institutions has been a topic we've been talking about for, better part of the last 2 years now. And the fact that we can just be, I mean, it's frustrating for anyone to really say that, oh, no, just trust it. It's fine. Like, I need you to look, to crack a newspaper, look at something outside of your own thoughts and opinions on this, because, it's more than a little bit ridiculous at this point here. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. I think we got time for one more we can get to here before that next break. We do have Raul in the Northeast in the line here. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, I'll remind Barbara that the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, Trump or Barbara trust the self-admitted serial sexual assaulter who has 5 kids from 3 different wives, all of whom he cheated on. But Barbara isn't ashamed of this traitorous moron. Now, yesterday was a huge day in U.S. history. Yesterday was the anniversary of the first forced resignation of the presidency by one of the worst presidents in U.S. history, only to be rivaled in crappiness by Trump, is GOP President Richard Nixon. And guess who, 9 times back in August and September and October of 2016, said that anyone being investigated by the FBI is not qualified to be president of the United States? Well, that was said by hypocrite Donald J. Trump. And perhaps coincidentally, yesterday, failed twice impeached former President Trump's home was raided by the FBI. He's winning. I wonder if these Trumpers are weary of winning so much. Unprecedented, historical, for the worst president in U.S. history. Lock that traitorous moron up. Now, in order for the Department of Justice to get a subpoena for the FBI to search someone's home, the Department of Justice would have had to present evidence to a federal judge sufficient to convince that judge that there is a high probability that evidence of a crime will be found at the places where the Department of Justice wants searched. So now about your guest, great guest, about voting. There's this thing called the first primary. It's called the money primary. And people, in essence, get to vote on those who are able to win the money primary, where those with money, the plutocrats, purchase the best politicians money can buy. And so that's one reason so many people are disillusioned with the system, because it's rigged by plutocrats with money and purchase politicians. And Donald Trump is a prime example of that. He said he was so rich that he wasn't going to need anybody's money when he ran, and yet he's out there getting the money, and he's still doing it.
I can't say I'm particularly surprised that I'm not going to call it quite giddy, but you can see it from here about this situation. But as much as someone else said that this has been yesterday the most significant, darkest day in U.S. history, as much as I disagree with it when other allusions to other days in the recent couple of years have come that way, going to disagree with that as well, given the light of September 11th, Pearl Harbor, etc. But I mean, it is significant in its own right, not to say that because those exist, this doesn't matter. But to say that this all of your conclusions are therefore supported, really any of these, I mean, we have seen a significant action happen. There are going to be more things that come out of this that we'll be paying very close attention to, as well as I'm sure every other host on this damn state. Well, maybe not the overnight guys, but you take my meaning there. Point is that calling this as a universal good and therefore nothing bad could possibly be a part of it here. We'll fully agree with you that, yes, high-level approval had to have been gotten, which is another reason I call the White House claim of ignorance about this more than a little bit of horsepucky. But, I mean, the concerns that come out of this, to say that there are no possible further implications that could be negative regardless of political party on this just does not hold water, in my opinion, here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take that. I appreciate the point in the call. We're going to take that next break, close out the show, get to squeeze in what we can here at the end of the program. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Spur 601 Liberty Expressway eastbound at the Loop, a vehicle is blocking the left lane. Stay to the right there. I-10 westbound at Executive Center Boulevard is truck blocking the right shoulder. Police on the scene of a crash at Artcraft and Donovan, and roadwork starts tomorrow morning at 9 through Friday on Montana Avenue. Left lane's going to be closed from the frontage road from Tierra Este to Justice. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like
building looks mediocre. Designs need a do-over.
or even
install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is a leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention, like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See? We didn't have to.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Tell you briefly about what we got coming up for you. Of course, you'll be checking in with our news partners at KFOX 14 here soon about the many in-depth stories being done here in and around the borderland, those local issues that we try to keep a handle on here, and the more in-depth that comes with it. Plus, more a little bit later this week about, well, some of the economics we're looking at here in the borderland. I mean, as much as there's been the talk about inflation, recession, what are some of the local factors and what study is being done about that? We'll got that for you coming up a little bit later here in the week. A lot of comments have come in here, and again, the Thunderdome comments always comes in here, including some newer commenters. I mean, you're always welcome to chime in over there if you want to. We got time for at least one more quick call we'll get to here. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Nothing earth-shattering here, but I'm just trying to find out. I've been on the internet for about 2 hours this afternoon when the global reach from Montana to East Fort Bliss should be completed.
Oh, yeah, I know construction going on there. Among other things, they're doing some of that Montana widening, double-decking. I've kind of lost track of it myself. Don't go out that much that way. But, I mean, the answer is always soon, but never soon enough. I know that's unsatisfying for you, but let me look into that, see what we can find out for you, at least for the next show here.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Andrew.
All right, thanks very much here. And unfortunately, we are so out of time here today. We're going to have to leave it there for today because we'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. every Monday through Friday as we do. So I want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Seriously, these conversations, as much as they may be interesting, developed, and frustrating sometimes, I appreciate everyone who takes the time to do so. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso in the coming days. But in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Spur 601 Liberty Expressway eastbound at the Loop, a vehicle is blocking the left lane. Stay to the right there. I-10 westbound at Executive Center Boulevard is truck blocking the right shoulder. Police on the scene of a crash at Artcraft and Donovan, and roadwork starts tomorrow morning at 9 through Friday on Montana Avenue. Left lane's going to be closed from the frontage road from Tierra Este to Justice. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
with open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com. Stay informed at KTSM